Hello and welcome to the 16th National Convention of the United Nations Global Compact Network India. Before we formally launch the convention, we would like to play the video on the work and initiatives of the Global Compact Network India.
We need a world where all strive to progress and prosper together, and no one is left behind. In September 2015, around 193 countries of the UN General Assembly came together for world's largest corporate sustainability initiative 2030, Agenda for Sustainable Development with 17 Sustainable Development Goals or SDGs. With these new goals that universally apply to all, countries would mobilize efforts to end all forms of poverty, fight inequalities and tackle climate change. The cost of implementing SDGs is a staggering $5 trillion per year. On the other hand, business leaders and entrepreneurs can unlock market opportunities worth $5 trillion and generate 230 million jobs in Asia alone through sustainable business models. In India, this mammoth task is taken forward by Global Compact Network India, GCNI, local network of the UN Global Compact. Though GCNI saw a very humble start, but as the time progressed, this revolutionary movement and phenomenon paced up with thoughtful members as new partnerships and collaboration came up by every passing day to support and strengthen this one family. Today, the Indian network ranks amongst the top 10 amongst 102 local networks, emerging as the largest corporate sustainability initiative globally, with a pan-India membership of 350 leading business and non-business participants, 341 signatories, and local chapters in 8 major cities of the country. The 17 SDGs and 169 targets incorporated in 2015 by global community completely reflects the development agenda of India.
भारत ने विकास का जो मार्ग चुना है, उसके और यूएन द्वारा प्रस्तावित सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट गोल्स के बीच बहुत सारी समानताएं हैं.
Many programs are launched by the government to make progress towards these global goals. Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana ensures access to financial services in an affordable manner. Midday meal scheme is designed to improve the nutritional status of school-age children nationwide. Pradhan Mantri Swasthya Sanrakshan Yojana provides reliable tertiary healthcare services. Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan ensures education for all. Beti Bachao Beti Padhao focuses on gender equality and empowerment of girl child. All these initiatives, schemes and programs are broadening the horizon for India's growth and transformation, creating new pathways for protection of people, planet and prosperity across the globe. GCNI is working hand in hand with Government of India in taking this agenda forward with its several initiatives, which include programmatic interventions, research, training and capacity building, advocacy, promoting governance, awareness and recognition. Though we have come a long way, but still there is much more to conquer, much to re-establish, much to reform and much to impact. Many more lives to be touched to make our country and our planet a better place to live in future. Because future is not just your or mine. Future is ours, and it's our responsibility and duty to shape up a sustainable future together. With responsible business practices combined with collaboration and innovation, we can bring about powerful change in markets as well as societies, proving that profit and principles go hand in hand. Let's shape a sustainable future together. Come, join us, become a member today, and show the world that India can make a difference.
Keep up the good work and make all the companies in India take action on the global goals. Show the world that India can make a huge difference on the global goals.
Good evening and namaskar. I'm Richa Jain Kalra. It is our pleasure to have you all at the 16th National Convention of the United Nations Global Compact Network India. The theme of the 16th convention is Target 2030, Assess, Act, and Accelerate. This year's theme emphasizes that the time to act towards achieving SDGs is right now. Businesses need to step up their on-ground actions as well as measure those actions to make a real impact on achieving the SDGs while also creating economic value for the nation. The world is slipping on SDG target 2030. This is the decade of action. In this two-day convention, we would, in alliance with the public and private sector, take the conversations forward on driving self-reliant, resilient, and sustainable economic growth. We would also in this two-day convention discuss how decarbonization, renewable energy, and sustainable supply chains can drive the green economy, along with identifying innovative solutions to drive SDG ambition in the wake of business disruptions caused by COVID. Before we invite our first speaker, I would like to inform all the delegates and participants to make full use of our virtual booths available in this convention online. Do visit our stalls and do visit the exhibitions available here. There's a chance to also click a selfie on the selfie booth. Global Compact Network India looks forward to have an engaging, enriching, and wholesome discussion in taking the SDGs forward with your support. And now we're opening the National Convention with our distinguished first speaker, Dr. Alka Mittal. She is the chair and convener of this 16th National Convention of the GCNI. She is Director HR at ONGC. Dr. Mittal is the first woman to hold charge of full-time director in ONGC's history. She is also on the board of ONGC Mangalore Petrochemicals Limited. I would now like to invite Dr. Alka Mittal to give the welcome address.
Namaskar. Good evening to all. And a very warm welcome to the annual flagship event, the 16th National Convention of the UN Global Compact Network India. I take the privilege as well as pleasure to welcome Honorable Union Minister for Ministry of Petroleum, Natural Gas and Minister of Housing and Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, Shri Hardeep Singh Puri. President UN Global Compact and CMD ONGC Group of Companies, Shri Subhash Kumar ji is also with us and we welcome him. Ms. Sue Allchurch from UNGC is present today and we take this opportunity to welcome her to this session and the sessions which will be following. Thank you so very much for being with us despite the time zone difference. And Mr. Vishwesh Prabhakar from Accenture has been helping us, guiding us in these for this particular convention. We welcome you to this session. All the delegates from corporates, government, civil society, institutions, academia, and all other organizations who have joined virtually this particular convention. I thank them for being with us and I welcome them to this session. I am sure they'll be taking away lots of interesting input from the deliberations that will be held during the course of this convention. The 16th National Convention here focuses on the certain key areas which are critical issues towards achieving the 2030 agenda for sustainable development, the sustainable development goals. to uncover opportunities for all stakeholders to drive collective, cohesive, and collaborative action towards gaining ground across the 17 SDGs, which are so significant, so important, and so relevant for all of us across the globe. Today, as global economies witness frequent climate change events as well as disruptions on massive scale, the need and speed for action addressing climate change, economic growth, equality, health, well being, clean energy, etc., is required now more than ever. The global pandemic, COVID 19, has ushered in a new normal in many ways. There are positives as well as negatives which have emerged out of COVID situation, I would say, the pandemic situation. The governments had to address multifaceted challenges of providing healthcare, ensuring growth in economy while committing to the climate action. Traditional approach to sustainability had to be reset, and the agenda for recovery involved an increased momentum on sustainable growth. The positive out of the COVID-19, I would say, is that it has been able to bring all of us across distance through on different digital platforms, and that gets us all together to commit towards the SDGs and share our thoughts and views on the same. So let me begin with talking about the COP26, where our Prime Minister Narendra Modi made 5 key pledges, which all of us, I think, to all of us, I would like to reiterate: to achieve net zero emissions by 2070, to share, to raise the share of renewables in the energy mix to 50% by 2030, to achieve 500 gigawatt of installed capacity for non-fossil fuels, fuel sources by 2030, cutting carbon emissions by 1 billion tons between 2021 to 2030, reducing carbon intensity emissions of CO2 per unit of GDP by 45% by 2030 again. So with these kind of challenges, we know that as a global developing economy, our energy demands are very high. India is today the world's third largest energy consuming country. Thus, to achieve these pledges, India needs to balance between significantly increasing on its renewables power capacity, and at the same time cutting down on the consumption of coal and use of crude oil, while ensuring that the country's energy needs are adequately met. As seen in the recovery of the COVID-19 pandemic, technology has a key role to play in transforming business models and opening up new avenues for business to adopt sustainable growth trajectories. Globally, CEAs are proactively strategizing and incorporating sustainability into their business decisions. Indian CEOs are largely in line with their global peers, but we acknowledge that India has its own indigenous challenges as well as opportunities. Good governance standards like transparency, accountability, responsibility, and ethics, I believe, are the very pillars of organizations' growth objective. And SDGs show us the way to do this and bring in the change we wish to see. The change we know is the right way forward. Driving a strategy for the future, as well as chartering through the challenges of the time, requires very strong focus on sustainability and good governance. The pressing need for India today are the access to financial capital, cooperation with developed countries for technology transfer, becoming more and more efficient in terms of energy usage, and favorable policies to support industry transition towards sustainability. So, considering this scenario, it is the time to assess, act, and accelerate towards achieving sustainable development goals. This is the time to assess the needs of the ecosystem and actions required to achieve sustainable development goals, as well as the ongoing measures taken for the same. This is also the time to act on those initiatives which enable businesses to become sustainable. Business leaders need to realize that there is a business value to sustainability in terms of cost savings, lower risks, supply chain security, access to new markets, customer loyalty, and overall enhanced brand value. With only 2,000 working days to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, the necessity to act from stakeholders is greater than it has ever been. It's actually a tough task ahead of us, but we are all geared for that. And this is the time to accelerate those ongoing actions that empowers business to lead the sustainability agenda. Getting businesses and governments on the same page is critical, and the opportunity for greater engagement, collaboration, investment, allocation is ripe to take charge and address climate change action. If we don't do it now, then when? Multi-sectoral partnerships, rapid R&D, and coordinated deployment of critical solutions is setting the stage for stakeholders to contribute and address global challenges in sustainability. As the United Nations country-level platform in India, Global Compact Network India has always been dedicatedly focused on providing a robust platform for Indian businesses, academic institutions, civil society organizations, and all other stakeholders to join hands for strengthening responsible business practices with our collective goal to end extreme poverty, fight inequality and injustice, and protect our planet. It is the time for us to pledge to continue this good work. I hope these 1.5 days discussions and deliberations shall lead us towards better understanding and emphasizing on the emphasis on the critical issues. Idea is now to understand the challenges that are ahead of us, and also the way forward which could help us in dealing with the same. For focused assessment, action, and acceleration towards achieving our SDGs for a sustainable future to all, let us commit to join hands and put all our thoughts together and pack these 1.5 days with lots of input, lots of content, and lots of takeaways, which will help us in moving forward. I once again would like to welcome each of you who has joined in today to the 16th National Convention, and will wish all of you an enriching and memorable experience during the convention. Thank you so very much for being with us. Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for setting the tone of this national convention with your welcome address. You've rightly said there are many challenges as well as opportunities in India, and therefore the Indian CEOs, I think, have their task cut out. Global Compact Network India, in partnership with Accenture, has done a comprehensive CEO study regarding this. And our next speaker, Mr. Vishwesh Prabhakar, is going to throw some light on this. He is MD Growth and Strategy Sustainability at Accenture. He has led multiple assignments and studies on sustainability in smart cities. Mr. Vishwesh Prabhakar is here to give the theme address centering on the GCNI Accenture CEO study on sustainability, India perspectives. Mr. Prabhakar.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Guest, respected Shri Hardeep Singh Puri, Mr. Subhash Kumar, Dr. Alka Mittal, Ms. Sue Alchurch, Shabnam Siddiqui, esteemed panelists, guests, and attendees. My greetings and salutations to you all. It's my privilege to be here today amongst you all at the opening session of GCNI 16th National Convention, Target 2030, Assess, Act, and Accelerate. We have been partners with UNGC globally and in India on sustainability-related thought leadership. Over the years, our partnership with UNGC has resulted in publishing multiple global CEO studies in addition to numerous other studies on sustainability. Our latest study, Climate Leadership in the 11th Hour, is a special edition report and was launched at the COP26 and is one of the largest CEO studies conducted till date, with more than 1,200 CEOs across 21 industries and 113 countries, including India. We followed up this study with an India Pulse Check study on sustainability, and it gives me immense pleasure to present to you the key insights from these studies. The first finding is that businesses are already experiencing and reporting damage and future risks on their value chains due to physical impacts of climate change issues such as forest fires, floods, cyclones, amongst others. This is over and above the significant impact of COVID-19 over the last 2 years. Our research tells us that 1 in every 2 CEOs are facing supply chain interruptions due to extreme weather, as shifting weather patterns interfere with business operations. Finding number 2, there is an increased pressure and consensus to shift from shareholder capitalism to stakeholder capitalism. 73% of CEOs we interviewed highlight sustainability as a critical priority for their business and expect pressure and opportunity to work on sustainability priorities only to increase. In 2016, investor community was cited by the CEOs as the 8th lever for driving them on sustainability priorities. This has jumped in 2021 to number 3, showcasing how investors are engaging and driving sustainability-related imperatives at businesses. This is a very positive shift, as capital markets will play an important role to influence businesses to pivot to sustainable business models. Almost 1 in 3 CEOs cite investors as the most influential stakeholder to manage future sustainability efforts. The third finding, there is a significant gap between commitment and plans, and hence there is an urgent need to ensure that businesses build bold plans to drive sustainability and climate change related imperatives. Even though 57% of CEOs believe that they are taking sufficient efforts to limit the temperature rise to 1.5 degrees Celsius, our research finds that only 2% of them have validated their targets with Science-Based Targets Initiative in line with the same. The fourth finding, businesses, especially those in the global south and India, cite 4 areas where they need support as they pivot their businesses to operate at the sweet spot of business value creation and sustainability. These areas are capital, technology, knowledge and expertise, and biodiversity and nature-based solutions. Regarding each one of them, I'll dwell a few minutes. Regarding capital, it is estimated that we need about $6 trillion per year till 2030 to achieve SDGs for us as a planet. And there is a gap of $2.5 trillion versus requirement of $6 trillion. When we come to India, it is estimated that we require about $2.6 trillion to meet the SDG goals, which is far higher than our current GDP. Similarly, it is estimated that net zero transition for India till 2070, basis the commitments made at COP26, is about $10 trillion, and we are likely to face a significant funding gap in this. There is an urgent need for working out mechanisms, including carbon pricing, to ensure that the quantum of capital required is available to businesses, including commitment of global north to provide capital to global south to enable the transition. Regarding technology, current technology and the cost that it is available largely meets the immediate requirements of businesses to pivot to sustainable models. Additional innovation is required to work on new technologies such as hydrogen, carbon energy storage, etc. More than 80% of the CEOs we interviewed are focusing on sustainability related research and development, and are piloting or evaluating blockchain-based technologies to drive sustainability initiatives. Regarding knowledge and expertise, almost half of the CEOs mentioned that they are already engaged in cross-sector consortiums like the GCNI and undertaking initiatives towards greenhouse gas emissions reduction. Coming to nature-based solutions, between 2020 and 2030, businesses will not only need to focus on internal business operations and their value chains, but they also need to focus significantly on offsets. And hence, biodiversity and nature-based solutions are a significant short-term solution. A report by UNEP and IUCN finds that nature-based solutions can deliver emission reductions and removals of at least 5 gigatons of carbon dioxide per year by 2030 and at least 10 gigatons by 2050 on a conservative basis. Almost 46% of the CEOs we interviewed have begun exploring nature-based solutions. Fifth finding, business CEOs, especially those from Global South and India, are cognizant of the need for just transition of the workforce and the extended value chains through upskilling and other means to ensure that the workforce impacted as businesses pivot to sustainable and green business models remain in the job market. Ladies and gentlemen, the final and the sixth finding is that business CEOs want government to step in to provide support for meeting sustainability related targets. And there are 5 areas where they're seeking support. First, align NDCs with 1.5-degree trajectory to provide impetus. Second, commitment to mobilize capital for climate finance. Third, increase business engagement in climate policy formation. Fourth, global cooperation on carbon pricing mechanisms. Fifth, establishing common standards for biodiversity protection and pathways for nature-based solutions. Ladies and gentlemen, I once again thank you for having me here today in this August gathering, and thank you for listening to me. I firmly believe that this is the time and opportunity for India to set new benchmarks. This is also the time to assess, act, and accelerate and scale up the SDG ambition. In the end, I want to conclude by sharing a quote from Ban Ki-moon, the 8th UN Secretary General. It goes as follows: "There is no plan B because we do not have a planet B. We have to work and galvanize our action." Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vishwesh Prabhakar, for elaborating and putting this year's theme into perspective and sharing some very valuable insights of the study. It is said to be a guiding source for many CEOs who are committed to SDGs. So now is the time for us to unveil this very important study. And for this, I would like to request Mr. Subhash Kumar, President, UN GCNI, and CMD, ONGC Group of Companies, Dr. Alka Mittal, Convener and Chair of this National Convention and Director HR at ONGC, and Mr. Vishwesh Prabhakar, MD Accenture, Strategy and Sustainability, to do the virtual launch of this study. I would request our technical team to kindly do the needful. And with this, we move ahead. I would now like to invite Ms. Sue Allchurch, Chief of Outreach and Engagement, UNGC, for her special address.
Thank you very much, Risha. And thank you very much, everyone here, for joining us today. I'm very privileged and humbled to be able to talk to you all today about the progress that we're making towards the Sustainable Development Goals and the work that we can all do together to scale action. I'm calling this presentation Scaling Action because this is indeed what the Global Compact is trying to do now, is to really take these actions and commitments and drive them across the world. As many of you know, there's about over 15,000 companies in the UN Global Compact. with CEOs all committed to these principles across human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption, and taking bold transformational action towards the delivery of the Sustainable Development Goals. So a little bit about here's a couple of numbers about the areas where business can make a profound impact and how we're doing towards Agenda 2030. Well, we all know the climate issue. We're tracking at the moment to close to the 3-degree trajectory in terms of warming, and we need to get that to 1.5. So still a lot of transformational work needed here. Another area, very important area for the world, is water. We have made progress recently. There is 74% of people are now in the world able to have safe drinking water, and that is up in the last 10 years. So there has been increased, but there are still 2 billion people lacking hygienic and safe water. So still more to do, and lots that the business community can help us with. In terms of oceans, we've definitely made a big increase in the number of protected ocean areas. It's up 14% in the last 5 years, so really great progress. But still now we have 700 dead zones. That's areas where there's not enough oxygen for life, and that has doubled in the last 10 years. So and that is related to climate change and ocean warming. Then let's look at decent work. This is a real issue. Now, 19% of the world's workers are poor, working poor still, so they're not earning enough for a living wage. And that translates to 160 million children in child labor. COVID has clearly made this worse. This is the first time in decades that poverty has increased because of the impact of COVID. We lost 9% of working hours, and now 9% of the world's population have gone into extreme poverty. That's 31 million people are out into extreme poverty now. One point to understand is that for every percentage point increase in poverty, we'll see 0.7 percentage point increases in child labor. So this is definitely an area that we need to focus on. And then gender. At the current trajectory of progress that we're making, it'll take us 268 years to close the economic gender gap. And before COVID, that was 257. And that's because job losses and the economic impact has been stronger, more negatively on women than it has on men. And the expectation is that there will be 31 million less female jobs after COVID has come back up to, after we've come out of the pandemic, although expect that males' jobs will be back to normal. So still more to do in that area. And we know that corruption and bribery is costing us 2 trillion, not to mention stability issues. So let's see a little bit of the progress that the business community is making, that we are making together. First of all, there is incredibly growing awareness on the area. 86% of CEOs who we interviewed agree that the whole global and economic system needs to shift towards equitable growth. It's not even little areas, but a real shift is needed, which is great. And 73% of CEOs expect the pressure to act to change dramatically over the next 3 years. So everyone's expecting this to get stronger and stronger. And as you did hear from the last presentation, there are 3 stakeholders that are most important. It's customers, consumers, and investors. And it used to be governments, but now investors have become important, more and more important. And this is this expectation of these stakeholders is growing. So businesses know that it's critical for their business. So consequently, we see in the Global Compact 88% of organizations taking action on the SDGs, these being the strongest one, decent work and economic growth. 95% of CEOs have labor principles put in place in their businesses. Climate action, we know that 69% of companies in the UN Global Compact have some form of emission target. Health and well-being, strong one. Gender equality, we know that 60% of companies in the UN Global Compact are now targeting a minimum of 30% representation of women in the next 4 years in leadership roles. So that is definitely going to make a profound impact. And responsible consumption, a very strong one, being supply chains being the most difficult area, which we can see in a minute. COVID has also had a galvanizing effect, really, on sustainability. 70% of CEOs say that it's increased the importance of corporate responsibility, and they really take a strong look at their practices. It's highlighted the need to move towards more sustainable business practices, and indeed, 45% of CEOs say they've adopted more ambitious targets as a result of the pandemic. And indeed, we've seen many more companies joining. We've had 20% more companies joining in the last couple of years, galvanized by the need to make commitment towards the Sustainable Development Goals. We've also seen more equity and inclusion. So 81% of CEOs have targets to actually eliminate inequality, and 76% of them targeting representative forces across their communities. However, at the moment, I think it's only 30% of those whose leadership are financially aligned, have goals aligned to these goals. So still a little bit more to do in that area. Gender, we're definitely making some good action. We have the gender gap analysis tool, which all organizations use when they've committed to the Women's Empowerment Principles. And there are 5,500 companies who've committed to these principles. So that's great. And 68% of those organizations have commitment for equality in leadership. So anyone who's actually been through the Women's Empowerment Principles and the Target Gender Equality Accelerator is really making strong progress. However, still only 34% of organizations with time-bound and measurable goals that we know that when these targets are committed. So still a little bit more to do and still more progress to be made. So what about climate? We're really focused, as we know, on this getting to the 1.5 degree warming scenario. And actually, around 60% of CEOs we interviewed believe that they're really making all the efforts they need to deliver 1.5. So there's a strong understanding that there's more to do. Many more commitments have been made since during the last COP26. 92% of companies with large companies, revenue over $1 billion, have emission targets, with only around 60% of SMEs. And it's harder to get this scaled across the supply chain. And so this is definitely what we see as a major challenge. But significant progress. There's over 2,000 companies now with science-based targets that are committed to taking action. And over 1,000 have confirmed plans and targets towards a 1.5. And indeed, it is the business community that is driving the international community towards the ambitious targets that we need. So it's really good. And now we have the net zero standard that was committed to over COP26, and we have the Climate Ambition Accelerator, which is helping more and more companies understand what it's going to take and what plans it's going to take to deliver the climate goals that we need. So you can see there's a lot more commitment, a lot of action, and a lot of great progress. But we do need more. And there's a couple of points here just to make this clear. So in the UN Global Compact, 39% of companies are setting targets aligned with societal needs. So what that means is we might be setting targets, but they're not aligned necessarily to the Sustainable Development Goals. So we need more ambition. We need to raise these goals. It needs to be 1.5 for climate. And the key, really difficult area is supply chains. 53% of CEOs say extending sustainability across their supply chain is the most difficult area and the top barrier. I see this data every year. This gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So companies are really starting to see this is the issue that we need help with and support with. And so therefore, we're looking to help with more scale. Here's an example. In the UN Global Compact, 72% of companies ensure a living wage to their employees, which is good. I mean, given that that working poor statistic I showed you before, this is critical. But only 20% of them can be sure that it goes right across their supply chains. And therefore, 43% of CEOs recognize there are systemic inequalities in their supply chains. So we definitely need to help and work together to address these issues. So the Global Compact strategy is focused all around this. First of all, we have a number of clear impact goals that we know where business can have an outsized impact on the outcomes, and this is the one we'll be focusing on delivering these. We'll be providing opportunities, engagement opportunities, training, research, etc., across each of those areas, ensuring that all companies, all sizes, all geographies, right across the value chain, can find a way to contribute to these goals in the way that suits them, be they learners or leaders in sustainability. And finally, we'll be measuring this through our communication on progress in our reporting platform. Taking each of these in turn, these are all the areas where we will be having impact goals that we'll be tracking our progress against: human rights, labour, corruption, climate change, obviously, governance, gender, and integration of SDGs. And for each of these, there's a portfolio of engagement opportunities, from joining, understanding and connecting in events, right to think labs, where we're really thinking of the leadership and the innovation and thought leadership with leaders. So, for instance, we've just launched the Just Transition to a Green Economy Think Lab. And then two areas where we're trying to really scale this. One is a very specific focus on Africa, and another is a very specific focus on supply chains and SME integration. And finally, we have coalitions where we work with other companies and other experts to deliver scale. One is on water, which is extending water targets right across specific water basins. And in fact, the goal is to touch 3 billion people in 100 basins worldwide. The Oceans Stewardship Coalition is about bringing together companies who all have some connection to oceans to ensure that we don't exploit the ocean as we make this progress going forward. Science-based targets with a view to it scaling up the number of companies working towards net zero. And then the CFO task force, which is CFOs working together. The goal is to have 1,000 CFOs joining, with 50% of their corporate financing linked to sustainability business building goals in their business, which could lead to a good 500 billion in corporate investment. So we want to work together with companies and non-businesses organizations to really scale this work. And I finish with a quote from our Deputy Secretary General, Amina Mohammed, who says we need to do this together in collaboration, north, south, east, west, black, brown, and white. We should strengthen the diversity of the human family. That's what's needed right now. And that's what we work towards, making the impossible possible. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Ms. Salchurch, for underlining that we are all in it together. Thank you for the special address and highlighting the gaps between the goals and the reality. And now, moving ahead, it's my pleasure to invite Shri Subhash Kumar, President, UN GCNI and CMD, ONGC Group of Companies, to give the President's address. Sir, your mic is off.
Yeah, Namaskar, Honorable Union Minister for Petroleum and Natural Gas and Housing and Urban Affairs, Government of India, Your Excellencies, distinguished speakers, corporate executives, delegates joining from India and overseas, ladies and gentlemen. A very good day to everyone. On behalf of UN Global Compact Network India, it gives me immense pleasure to extend a very warm welcome to all of you to this 16th edition of our National Convention. This is the second time that we are holding the convention on a virtual platform. Though the COVID-19 has been one of the pandemics and the problem we faced over the last 1 century, one of the worst one, yet it has certain offshoots. There are certain positives, and digital revolution is one of them, and which in fact is today enabling us to interact on this platform. Ladies and gentlemen, as we know, the UN Global Compact's 10 principles drawn from UN conventions and declarations in the areas of human rights, labor, environment, and anti-corruption offer foundational values and guidelines for adopting our business policies in line with responsible management. On the other hand, the UN SDGs provide a powerful aspirations for improving our world, clearly laying out where we collectively need to go and how to get there. Clearly, there are primary linkages between the UN Global Compact 10 principles and the contribution that these make towards the achievement of the SDGs. In 2015, the global community adopted a new developmental agenda, transforming our world, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, central to which is leaving no one behind. The global challenges, be it climate change, water and food crisis, eradication of poverty, gender inequality, etc., need solutions that we all can collectively address. One important area where the 10 principles and SDGs overlap and which I would like to specifically highlight is the partnerships. We all must acknowledge that multi-stakeholders partnerships is one of the key requirements essential for effective implementation of SDGs. And the Target 2030 Agenda provides the space for adopting a faster route to assess, act, and accelerate towards achieving of SDGs. Ladies and gentlemen, the National Convention, which revolves around the theme of UN 2030 Agenda and SDGs, is taking place in the backdrop of COP26 climate meeting at Glasgow held last month. This convention with Target 2030 as its theme is very important from many perspectives, and since countries are now expected to dedicate even more resources to fight climate change. And as my colleague, Madam Alka Mittal shared, we have only, the number of days within which these all targets have to be met. Since 2015, we have made significant progress on several fronts on SDGs through our collective efforts. The outlook of a post-COVID world is entirely different, and there is a need for sustainable development and strategies to be adopted at par with the emerging ecosystem. While we are on the course of building back better after pandemic world, it's important for all of us to embed the core principles of sustainability into our business strategy and translate into focused actions towards achieving the SDGs. The 2030-2021 GCNI Accenture CEO study, which was dealt at length by my colleague Mr. Prabhakar on sustainability, echoes similar sentiment and brings out the hard truth from the perspective of global CEOs that if you are not shifting to sustainable business model, you are putting your company at huge risk. In this context, the recent global push to track and report ESG programs that balance the economic, social, and governmental progress as envisioned in 2030 Agenda, the SDGs, as well as the basic foundational 10 principles of UNGC should be seen as an opportunity for all of us to promote, validate, and expand upon our sustainability efforts. The situation of our planet is changing rapidly, and the dangers of climate change is upon us. The energy transition has taken off, and it's critical that the world needs to move to a low carbon future. I had the opportunity to be part of CEO's roundtable at ADIPAC conference in Abu Dhabi last month, and I've just returned from World Petroleum Congress at Houston. One thing which I noted at these global events is that there is near unanimity among the energy experts that the coming energy transition is meant to be totally different. Besides the energy transition, which we are currently going through, shall have to be an inclusive one, looking at the issues from prism of energy poverty and addressing critical issues of energy security and energy affordability. I must also add here that the narrative at times becomes very lopsided On the one hand, as far as energy is concerned, the world is today relying predominantly on fossil fuels for about around 85% at global level, and we in India depend on around 91%. And the climate change situation is real. Now, if the fossil fuels, etc., were just around 8 to 10% of the whole energy mix, there could have been one situation as far as the transition is concerned. But to be able to replace fossil fuels overnight would be a daunting task. So, and if there is a risk to the availability of secured availability of energy for the populace of the world, that could impact, put the whole world at the risk of energy poverty. Now, energy is at the very root of attainment of the various SDGs, and from that perspective, it is critical that all of us put our minds and thoughts together to address the energy equation as we transition along. Because if one were to talk about climate alone, without cognizance of what is happening on energy front, we would possibly be talking of almost trying to build a house without a foundation. Energy, to me, is fundamental to the human development, and that is a critical input which must be addressed. The truth actually, fortunately, does not reside at the extremes. We need to balance both the considerations. Particularly in context of oil and gas industry, it's being increasingly found that investment environment for this sector is becoming more challenging in the face of unprecedented uncertainty and risks, including abnormal price volatility, evolving government regulations, and increasing diverging long-term demand narratives and non-standardized ESG criteria. Such speed and sudden pressure for this industry has high potential of creating a situation, as I said earlier, of energy poverty, which will not augur well for eradicating poverty, the primary goal of Target 2030. India, as an emerging superpower aspiring to become a 5 trillion economy by 2024-25, is uniquely positioned to contribute towards the 2030 agenda on sustainability and SDGs. The intent of SDGs have always been inherent to our country's tradition and heritage, whereas the narrative Satat Bharat, Sanatan Bharat sums up India's cherished commitment to a sustainable future for all. The motto Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Vishwas, given by our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Modi ji, further resonates with the core SDG principle of leaving no one behind. In this context, Indian companies, both public and private, have undertaken several policy measures to actively pursue UN 2030 agenda as well as the SDGs. GCNI has been a strong guiding force and supportive platform for the industries. For example, ONGC, the largest oil and gas producing and premier national oil company, is an extremely responsible corporate citizen. Our CSR initiatives strategically cover 12 out of 17 SDGs under various flagship initiatives, to name a few: Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, Swachh Bharat, Skill India, and these are some of the areas on which we work. Coming to the role of GCNI, it has been doing a pioneering work since 2003, starting from helping its members to espouse the 10 principles into their work culture and corporate governance structures. GCNI is the only agency in India driving all the 17 SDGs chartered by United Nations. During the last 2 years, amid COVID-19 pandemic-related restrictions, GCNI took to the online platform and worked tirelessly towards achieving the SDGs as we inch closer to the 2030. Because as far as the deadline is concerned, that is decided, so we need to cover the entire distance very, very fast. Realizing the promises of 2030 agenda and SDGs requires significant scaling up. We must act together to ensure that the benefits of development reach everyone, everywhere, leaving no one behind. The course ahead must be chartered together, through a whole of the society approach, building on partnership with all stakeholders. I am hopeful that together we can progress as one and accomplish the SDGs on time. Friends, this today's national convention brings us together and brings also the other finest minds in this industry. We have a formidable galaxy of eminent speakers having a vast experience in their respective fields at one place, diving deep into some of the pertinent issues towards our sustainability journey, such as acceleration towards a net zero, the importance of circular economy, role of finance in scaling the SDGs, role of innovation and ecosystem partnerships in scaling the SDGs, and youth-centric approaches for achieving the SDGs. I am confident that the discussion shall gauge at the crystal ball to meet the set targets and result into actionable outcomes. Before I sign off, I'd like to thank you all for joining us on this digital platform for global cause. Let me thank you all for the support, particularly the speakers, partners, sponsors, core committee members, with a deep sense of gratitude to the team Global Compact Network India for making this convention a truly special one. We are living amid this transformative landscape, and in these changing times and difficult times, we hope to gain your unstinted support to overcome the biggest challenge through our collaborative efforts. Thank you very much. Jai Hind.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you so much for your valuable address, sir. And you rightly pointed out the massive need for gearing up into action for the Target 2030. And with this, we take forward this national convention to our chief guest, Mr. Hardeep Singh Puri, the Honorable Union Minister. I'm happy to announce that Honorable Union Minister for Petroleum, Natural Gas, Housing and Urban Affairs, Shri Hardeep Singh Puri ji, has sent a video message for the inaugural address. I would request our technical team to please play it.
Good evening, and my greetings to all distinguished participants. As a former permanent representative of India to the United Nations, both in Geneva and in New York, I have had the privilege of working closely with different UN organizations, civil society, and all other sectors and people part of the UN family. And I have come to realize the power of collective corporate efforts for betterment of human lives long before the concept of corporate social responsibility was even coined. UNGSN's core principles have served as guiding light for responsible, sustainable, and accountable corporate governance the world over. Businesses should support and respect the protection of internationally proclaimed human rights. Businesses should uphold the freedom of association and the effective recognition of the right to collective bargaining, elimination of discrimination in respect of employment and occupation, undertake initiatives to promote greater environmental responsibility. I am particularly pleased to see that in India, ONGC and GAIL are playing an important anchoring role in the GCNI's operations and efforts. India's oil and gas public sector undertakings spend almost rupees 1,600 crores annually as a part of their CSR efforts on many key developmental areas such as health, education, sanitation, etc. During the COVID-19 pandemic, the oil and gas public sector units made tremendous contribution in supporting India's healthcare facilities through supply of oxygen concentrators, oxygen cylinders, setting up PSA oxygen generating plants, cold chain logistics equipment for COVID-19 vaccines, as well as setting up multiple vaccination camps. The theme Target 2030, Assess, Act and Accelerate, is a key milestone to assess the progress we have made as a nation towards the Sustainable Development Goals. When the SDGs were announced at the UNGA in 2015, Prime Minister Modi, noting its coincidence with the Deen Dayal Upadhyay 100th birth anniversary, committed to a philosophy of Antyodaya, leaving no one behind. Over the last 7 years, that vision has culminated with the Government of India's Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Prayas motto for rolling out some of the world's most significant social development schemes. Some of these, the universal health coverage, 16.8 crore Ayushman Bharat cards have been issued and 2.27 crore hospital admissions facilitated. Universal housing, more than 2.18 crore homes have been completed in urban and rural areas under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. Universal financial access, 44 crore beneficiaries under the PM Jan Dhan Yojana. Universal sanitation, more than 11.29 crore household toilets constructed and more than 6.03 lakh villages made open defecation free under the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Universal access to electricity, 2.81 crore household electrified under the Saubhagya Yojana, achieving 100% electrification. Universal access to clean cooking fuel, 8.84 crore LPG cylinders released under the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana. Universal access to potable water, 5.4 crore families have started getting water from tap after the launch of the Jal Jeevan Mission. We have spent rupees 11.5 lakh crores in the past 7 years on urban infrastructure development compared to just 1.5 lakh crores spent in the 10 years between 2004 and 14. After the success of the Swachh Bharat and Amrut schemes, SBM 2.0 and Amrut 2.0 aim to provide 2.68 crore tap connections, 2.64 crore sewer connections, and 100% door-to-door collection of segregated waste for a garbage-free India. Prime Minister had announced last month in Glasgow an ambitious action on expanding clean and renewable energy, energy efficiency, afforestation, and biodiversity. He also presented India's contribution to climate action in the form of 5 core elements. Panchamrit. First, India will take its non-fossil energy capacity to 500 GW by 2030. Second, India will meet 50% of its energy requirements from renewable energy by 2030. Third, India will reduce the total projected carbon emissions by 1 billion tons from now till 2030. Fourth, by 2030, India will reduce the carbon intensity of the economy by less than 45%. And fifth, by the year 2070, India will achieve the target of net zero. These Panchamrits will be an unprecedented contribution of India to climate action. Today, India ranks 4th in the world in installed renewable energy capacity. India's non-fossil fuel energy has increased by more than 25% in the last 7 years, and now it has reached 40% of our energy mix. I look to UNGCI for taking on the role, for assuming a position of an anchor organization and knowledge partner for India. Today, as per norms, corporates already spend 2% of their profits on CSR. However, I believe that they can contribute much more meaningfully and at a much larger scale. I encourage our industry captains to invest their resources into R&D to develop novel and low-cost solutions for India's greatest challenges and actively partner with the government for ongoing implementation of schemes. SDGs 2030 is a global dream that hinges on India Without India, the world cannot fulfill the SDG goals. I thank the UN and GCI for bringing together such a gathering of leaders and thinkers from across industries and organizing the 16th National Convention. I'm confident that your discussions here will translate into greater synergies for fulfilling the SDG 2030 goals or Agenda 2030. I thank you very much.
Thank Honorable Minister Sri Hardeep Singh Puri ji for taking time out for making this inaugural address. He has so aptly underlined what India aims to do in coming years regarding the SDGs. We hope with synergized action on all fronts, we all inch closer to achieving the SDG target. And with this, I would now like to invite Ms. Shabnam Siddiqui, the Executive Director of the Global Compact Network India, to give a vote of thanks. In her leadership, the network is actively engaged in promoting sustainability agenda with the businesses across the board. Ms. Siddiqui.
Thank you so much, Richa. I'm quite overwhelmed with this inaugural session, with the kind of commitments, with the kind of honesty that has followed. But before I start, thank you. Very good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to all the delegates joining from different parts of the world. It's indeed an honor and a pleasure to be giving this vote of thanks. And the best part is the minister telling us at the UN Global Compact Network India to take more leadership, more accountability of how businesses can be a part of the change. In fact, the very concept, the theme of the convention, when it was being deliberated by the convention committee, went back and forth to come up with this theme about how do we assess, act, and accelerate. So the assessment and action by the government is in place. I think the businesses now need to take it forward. We take up the challenge given by the government, by the Honorable Minister, in playing a key role in making change possible, especially with the business community. We thank him very, very much for his virtual presence in this convention. We are also very thankful to our president, Mr. Subhash Kumar, and the CMD of ONGC Group of Companies. Under his leadership, under his brief leadership, I think we have achieved much more than we have achieved in a decade, so to say. He has been the most inspiring leader that Global Compact Network has seen till now. And his speech today is just a small bit of indication of what we all get inspired with. We are also very thankful to Sue Allchurch, especially keeping in mind that when we invite somebody senior from the UNGC leadership, despite the time difference, because it is extremely early morning in New York, she immediately accepted our invite and was here to share with us what is happening globally, the kind of commitments that are happening. So thank you so much, Sue. We are thankful to Vishwesh Prabhakar, our partners at Accenture, who have been partnering for the National Convention for the last 8 years, consistently doing all our, being true partners in all engagements. So thank you so much, Vishwesh. And most of all, success of this convention lies under the leadership of our chairperson for the convention, Dr. Alka Mittal. Again, I would like to say that there has been no convener till now who has taken such forward-looking actions. Anything that we requested her, from sponsorship to speakers to delegates, she has been at the forefront of all. The convention committee members who worked with her have all worked in a very democratic fashion. The sessions that we see here have come up after lots of deliberations. So I hope the delegates will enjoy and will ensure that to take key takeaways from the sessions. And we also would like to thank our partners in today's convention. The title partner, of course, is the Oil and Natural Gas Corporation, ONGC, who have been our mentors for 2 decades. The diamond partners, NMDC, Bharat Petroleum, Indian Oil Corporation. Our gold partners, ONGC, Tripura Power Company, GAIL, SAP, and SIDBI. Our silver partners, Hindustan Petroleum, HPCL, Oil India, Gujarat Fluorochemicals, BSF India, Renew Power, Power Grid Corporation of India, Indraprastha Gas Limited, SBI, LIC, and BMW Group India. I think this year we saw the maximum number of companies coming forward to become partners in the convention. our corporate contributors, Citizen Foundation, and Balmer Group, a Logic group of companies, our knowledge partner Accenture for both setting up this convention as well as coming up with a study on the CEO's understanding of what they want to do and their commitment for the future. Our digital media partner, Learn with Leaders, our session partner, UNICEF. Tomorrow you'll have an exclusive session because we keep saying that youth is the future of tomorrow. So what do they have to say about the SDGs and their commitments is what the session will be about. I will request delegates to definitely attend the session. Our media partners, Dainik Bhaskar, and our magazine partner, CSR Times. And finally, our SDG outreach partner, Unity of UNCAC, UNACC. But most of all, I would like to thank my own team also, who has been working round the clock behind the curtains. You have interacted with some of them. You might not have interacted with most of them. So a special thanks to Asim, Deep, Somnath, Shreya, Tamanna, Arya, Ankita, Panchali, Rajendra, and Raj. It's each one of you that makes this kind of convention, that makes this kind of gathering a huge success. Thank you so much, everyone. Stay with us, stay tuned for the next session. Back to you, Richa.
Thank you, Ms. Shabnam Siddiqui. I must say you've very warmly expressed gratitude to everybody today. And as Ms. Siddiqui said, that we would be moving into a plenary session soon, but stay tuned with us. And before we do that, in a few minutes from now, I would like to remind all our participants and attendees that there is a lot of stuff that can be done in this virtual national convention. Please do visit our booths, our stalls, corporate stalls available. You can also click selfies at the selfie booth, and attendees who attend the entire national convention for 2 days will get an e-certificate on full attendance of this national convention. So do make use of that, do avail that certificate on complete attendance. And before we move ahead, we would like to play a video of our esteemed partner, Oil and Natural Gas Corporation.
When the nation joins hands to fight a common enemy, victory is certain. Though this enemy is an alien contagion, it can be no match for the fervor that unites 1.3 billion citizens. The call by the Honorable Prime Minister also mustered the power and the energy of the nation to surmount the current challenge, bringing into the fray energy conglomerate ONGC. Responding swiftly to the crisis arising from the coronavirus pandemic, ONGC started safety measures very early. Employees were asked to prepare and be technologically ready to face any restriction on movements. Work must go on was the intent. Employees who had been working on the offshore locations and onshore locations offered to continue working with extended duty periods away from their families. Our 24/7 operations and their commitment has ensured uninterrupted supply of oil and gas for the nation. They toil in the fields, adhering to all government guidelines of social distancing and hygiene. Giving additional impetus to these efforts, ONGC contributed 300 crore rupees from their CSR fund, and employees gave 2 days' salary amounting to around 16 crore rupees. But ONGC didn't stop there. We reached out to millions who suffered hardships due to the lockdown. All work centers of ONGC across the country distributed relief supplies to the needy and protective gear to frontline fighters like medical professionals, municipal workers, and security staff.
We at ONGC have always risen to the call of the hour. During this national crisis of COVID-19, we have maintained our offshore and onshore operations round the clock to maintain uninterrupted supply of oil and gas to the nation. While maintaining our operations, we have also ensured full compliance of Government of India as well as WHO guidelines like social distancing, maintaining personal hygiene, work from home, and maintaining operations with skeleton staff to contain this pandemic. I firmly believe together we will overcome this national crisis.
Individually and collectively, these humane acts reflect the selfless, committed, responsible, proactive, and energetic spirit of the nation and also of ONGC, a responsible corporate helping every Indian fight this challenge collectively.
हम में है उजाला अंधियारा मिटाने का, हम में है हौसला नई उमंग बनाने का, हम में है एक जोश हर मंजिल पाने का, हम में है एक जज्बा हर जिंदगी सजाने का, हम में है जोश हर मंजिल को पाने का, हम में है
हम है वो रोशनी जो बनाए आपका भविष्य और उज्जवल। हम है ONGC।
ONGC has been a major source of support to the national convention organized by the Global Compact Network India. And there are a few minutes left in our Power Pack, the panel discussion that is set to begin at 5:30. Stay tuned with us. There's a lot more stuff that you can do virtually in this national convention. Do explore it and do post your selfies tagging UNGCNI and then stay tuned with us. Also, I would like to remind all our attendees and delegates that tomorrow is going to be again a very heavy activity day. A lot of action is going to be visible. So do join us early at around 10:15. A lot of important discussions are lined up tomorrow. And with this, we take a short break and we would regather at 5:30 for the plenary session with a Power Pack panel.